I'm an American who's been traveling the world and living abroad for nearly 2 years. And one of those places that I have traveled to was the UK, London to be exact. Now, I spent roughly 1.5 days in the UK. Obviously, 1.5 days is not nearly enough time to actually get a good sense for the culture. And that is why in this video, I will be reacting to other Americans who are living in or traveling through the UK, sharing their biggest culture shocks so that I can live vicariously through them and learn more about what the UK has to offer.
An American that moved to London about 6 months ago, and one of the biggest culture shock things with living here is learning their portion sizes, which honestly, take this with a grain of salt because I grew up in America. So I picked up these pre-marinated chicken thighs from M&S. This is supposed to serve 2 people, but I was gonna have enough for dinner tonight as well as lunch tomorrow. This is all that came in the pack, one singular chicken thigh. And this is supposed to be enough for 2 people. Yeah, America, what are we doing?
Things I'm still not used to as an American living in England, and no, one of them is not hanging my clothes on a washing line, even though I still think that's very weird. One thing about English people is they do not like to brag about what they have, and I actually love that about them. Americans love to tell you what car they drive, what school they went to, how much money they make. It was so weird when I moved to England and no one was asking me these questions, but it was also very refreshing. The amount of vacation days people get here for work is actually still insane to me. They really value family and downtime here in England, which I think is really nice. One thing about English people that I have noticed is they are way harder to get to open up. You can meet an American and be best friends with them 2 minutes later, but English people are definitely more standoffish. So making friends can for sure be a bit more difficult. Americans love to dress down, and when I mean dress down, go out in their pajamas. You won't catch many people here in England going out like that. People just dress up more and definitely look more presentable over here. One thing about English people is you will have to beg them to give you a compliment. Whereas in America, people are throwing out compliments left and right. Now, since living here, I'm like, are Americans just fake when they're giving you these compliments? Or are they actually being nice? Because now I just have no idea. 4.5 years of being in England, and these are things that I'm just not used to, and I don't think I ever will be.
I'm an American living in London, and these are a couple of funny things I've noticed that Brits say that just make me laugh. Hi, I'm Devin, I'm from California, and I've been living in London for 2.5 years now. Number 1 is "you're right" or "you okay?" The first couple times I heard this, I thought people were like saying I looked upset or bad, like, "oh, are you all right?" But it's genuinely just how they say hello. They're not asking like, "how are you?" in detail, like you shouldn't go on this long tangent. They're just saying hi. To be honest, sometimes this one still trips me up on like how to answer it, but if you just say like, "oh yeah, I'm good," move on, then that does the job. Number 2 is when you ask someone, like if you're talking about a different person and you're like, "oh, how old are they?" They'll say like, "oh, they're a year below me," or "they're 2 years above me." And I get that comes from school, but like I'm in my mid-20s and they still do that. I'll be like, "how old is that person?" "oh, she's 2 years below me." Just say, 23, 24, 25. Just say the age. That's what I'm looking for. And number 3, this one's just funny to me. When someone gets pregnant, they'll say, "oh, when I fell pregnant," or "I fell pregnant." Like you fell, like you tripped and landed and you were now pregnant. It just makes me laugh. Let me know if you want a part 2 on this because I have a whole list. Or comment below if you think of any others.
I can't be the only one that thinks this, but I think British people are the kings of corporate jargon. The other day, I was talking to this guy who does workshops, talks, and there was somebody in the audience who was British. He lives in California and I live in the UK. So he asked me, why is it that British people sort of beat around the bush? If you've ever spoken to an American, you know that we just say it how it is. We get straight to the point. Unlike British people, they sort of not sugarcoat things, but they leave it open to interpretation, especially in the work environment. The reason for this is because British people appreciate politeness. They don't want to come off as rude. So they'll soften things. And instead of saying, for example, "I don't like it," they'll just say, "that's just not my cup of tea." Americans, on the other hand, are super direct. Because being seen as direct means that you are confident and sure of who you are. I found out that this is called hedging. They'll say things like, "I might be wrong," or "perhaps we could," sort of leaving it open to interpretation because it creates space for the other person to disagree without sort of having a confrontation. I think this is why it is so difficult for Americans to communicate with British people, and why British people oftentimes find Americans obnoxious.
Okay, so I definitely just learned a thing or two, or maybe a few, about the UK and its culture. Now, if you see me looking off to the side, it's because I took some notes while watching these videos because I have some questions that I want to ask you, especially if you are a British person. For starters, the portion sizes. I feel like portion sizes in the UK are larger than in mainland Europe. Obviously, they're still going to be smaller than the US. I don't know if there is a place where portion sizes are generally as large as in the US on average, but portion sizes in the UK didn't really come across as very small to me. Mind you, I didn't really eat out like that. I'm more so going based on what I bought at the stores, but I didn't really feel like, oh, they're skimping me, or they're not really giving me as much as I should be getting for the money. Granted, I think I got most of the stuff I got at Whole Foods. So Whole Foods, to my knowledge, is an American grocery store. So it tracks that the portion sizes would be more in line with American portion sizes. But even when we were on the ferry and my girlfriend was getting the traditional English breakfast, I didn't really feel like they shorted her in terms of the portion sizes. I felt like the portion sizes were appropriate. Let me know what you think, because in that particular instance, in that video, that one, was it a chicken thigh or chicken breast? That one chicken thigh or breast for 2 people, that is a little bit crazy. I'm not gonna lie. In my opinion, that's kind of crazy, but I feel like that might be more of an anomaly. I don't know. If you're British, then obviously you know more about this. So let me know what you think about portion sizes in the UK compared to the rest of the places that you've been to. Now, let's talk about humility. British people are humble. And I'm not gonna lie, when I went to the UK, and mind you, I spent most of the time in London. So, I mean, that's kind of the only place in the UK where I actually walked around. I saw people pushing some very expensive and exotic cars. McLarens, Rolls-Royce Phantoms, Cullinans, all types of cars that, I mean, most people would never be able to afford, even with their whole entire life savings. So I know people out there in London are getting to it, but at the same time, London, and again, I'm using London as an example because that's my best reference point, it felt a lot more sophisticated maybe. And even when I look at the quote-unquote pop culture, and my reference point for that would be Top Boy, when I look at Top Boy compared to, let's say, for example, some American crime shows, all right, we're talking about people who are dealing with some big money here. And you let me know how accurate Top Boy is, by the way, but when I look at Top Boy, I didn't really feel like, okay, these guys are really flashy with their money. Versus Paid in Full, if you've watched Paid in Full, then you know what I'm talking about. That's about the crack epidemic in New York and a few drug dealers who took advantage of that and were making a lot of money, kind of like the people in Top Boy were. They were very flashy with their money. And that's something that you see in the US, is that when people have money, they want people to know. Whereas I feel like in the UK, even though I saw some of these exotic cars, the colors, for example, would be understated. Or people weren't necessarily revving their engines when there was a crowd around them walking down the street. Because they're not necessarily looking for attention. I'm sure some people are. It's obviously a big country with a lot of people, so I'm sure there are people like that. But by and large, I just got the sense that people there were a little more low-key, and the cars that they had and the clothes that they wore, if they were wearing designer, things like that, they were more just a consequence of the fact that they just had the money to afford them, but it wasn't like they were just going out of their way to flex on other people. But I could be completely wrong about this. I also feel like in the UK, from what I've heard, it's less about your economic status and more about your class. And that doesn't really seem to be something that money can buy. So it makes sense that people wouldn't really see the need to try to flex their wealth. But I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. Now, vacation time. Vacation time, I mean, that's a topic that I've beaten to death on this channel, but pretty much anywhere within Europe. Anywhere within Europe is going to be better than the US in this regard, at least as far as I'm aware, especially in the EU, but evidently in the UK, vacation time is also valued very, very highly. And that's something that I really appreciate about that part of the world, is that you just have a good understanding of work-life balance and you're not shamed for not wanting to put in all of the extra hours and not wanting to sacrifice family time that you can't get back, by the way, for extra dollars. Because again, it's not just about making money so you can flex on people. It's just about working so that you can live the kind of life that you want to live. But if you're not living the life that you want to live, then what's the point? What's the point of working 80 hours a week if you can't even enjoy the money that you have? So I definitely like that the UK has that approach, because again, out of the places I've been, maybe other than Zurich, London in particular, in Europe, by the way, is the place that emanated the most wealth. So people there are still getting to the bag, but they're doing it while also valuing their life on the other side of work. And that's something that I really appreciate and I find inspirational personally. Now, the next thing I want to address is coconut culture. What is coconut culture? So, from what I understand, not even just British people, but most European people, especially from colder countries like Norway, the Netherlands, Germany, maybe Switzerland, Poland, so on and so forth. People from those places tend to be coconuts. And what that means is that they have very hard outer shells, but once you break through the outer shell, they're soft on the inside. And I mean soft in a good way, not soft as in weak, soft as in very caring, loyal, and even affectionate. In the US, we have what is known as a peach culture, where people are soft on the outside. It's very easy to start a conversation with somebody, and even to make surface level friendships with people, or to become acquaintances with people. But when it comes to actually investing oneself into the intricacies of someone else's life, that's when things start to get a little bit shaky. And of course, these are very broad generalizations that I'm making, but I mean, they have some degree of truth in them. They're rooted in reality. Americans, I wouldn't necessarily just call all Americans fake, or even most Americans fake, but you do feel like it comes so easily that you have to wonder how real it actually is. Now, to double back on the humility component of British culture, or I guess UK culture, I honestly don't even know the difference between the UK and Great Britain. I think Great Britain is the island and the UK is the whole country. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Honestly, I probably should have looked that up before filming this, but fashion. Fashion is on a different level. Fashion is definitely on a different level. When I was in London, pretty much everyone was dressed to the nines. Everyone had on the overcoats, the scarves, things of that nature. And I know if you're from Europe, those things are normal to you. In the US, those things are most certainly not normal. And I know this because almost any time I've ever stepped out in an overcoat or something similar in the US, people have complimented me. Whereas in not just the UK, but everywhere I've been in Europe, that is normal day-to-day attire. And I don't really know why Europeans, and especially people from the UK, tend to be so fashionable, but you guys know how to put it on. And the cool thing is that you know how to dress without relying on brands. So a lot of Americans, especially when they get some money, again, they want people to know that they have money, so they don't want to be understated. They're wearing the shirt with 5 different Gucci logos, or a big Gucci logo right there on the chest, and they're wearing Balenciagas with the Balenciaga branding all around the shoe. In the UK, people might be wearing these brands, or maybe not. The key is you won't know. Unless you have a trained eye, you're not going to know, because it's a lot of solid colors, it's high quality fabrics, high quality materials, and it looks plain. Each individual piece looks plain, but when you put it all together, you have a really nice fit. And to me, that's what fashion is all about. Mind you, I'm not a fashionista by any means. I'm wearing a white tee. You know, every video that I make, I'm either wearing a white t-shirt or a black t-shirt. And I'm wearing sweatpants right now. I don't really take the time to put on really nice outfits. Granted, here in Vietnam, it's kind of unnecessary too. But I feel like being in the UK, if I were to live in the UK, I would definitely take that extra time because otherwise you're just gonna make me look bad. Now, as far as greetings go, I've heard the "you alright" thing mostly just on the internet, but another one that kind of shocked me, and again, my reference is Top Boy, so I know this is kind of just a subset of UK culture, but I think it was Wagwan, which I think is kind of an abbreviated version of what's going on. That one took me a while to really understand. I didn't know what was going on for those first few episodes. I was like, what are they saying to each other? Wagwan. I feel like British greetings are kind of similar to American greetings, actually. This is one area where I think the UK and the US are pretty similar, because in the US, people will ask, "How are you?" And it's not really meant to be a conversation starter. It's just a greeting. It's a greeting in passing. You say, "Good, how about you?" "Good." "Cool." It's kind of like saying, "What's up?" "What's up?" You don't even have to reply to that one, or just head nod. There's so many different greetings that it seems like the US and the UK have that just don't really make sense to mainland Europeans, where to them, they're going to take that literally. They're going to take the "you are right" literally, and they are going to tell you how they're actually feeling. Same thing with the "how are you."